the ocean, filmed with what appears to be the grainy camera of an old cell phone. We see ships floating and hear the voices of men yelling in various languages, later to be decoded as Mandarin, Vietnamese, and potentially even Taiwanese. And while translating their words is difficult, their sentiment is easy to understand. Something had grabbed the men's attention. Something in the water. The camera pans around as if it's looking for that something, while showing the vast, deep blue waters surrounding their ship. We're in the middle of nowhere, clearly miles and miles away from any sign of humanity. Suddenly, the commotion intensifies as the cameraman makes a dash for the opposite side of the ship, as finally he sees it.
How are you?
It was a man, warily treading water. The cameraman yells to him in English, "How are you?" To which the swimmer raises his hands, signifying his desperate need for help. It started to become clear that this video was going to be of some sort of rescue attempt. Somehow that man had ended up in the water and clearly needed to be saved, and this far out at sea, it seemed to be a miracle that these ships had reached him in time. But within this clip, nothing is what it seems, as rather than a life preserver being tossed to the man or maybe even a rope getting thrown his way, a gunshot rings out. A shot aimed directly at the man in the water.
What?
The shot misses just inches above his head, only to be followed by another shot, and another, until finally the fourth try connects, the bullet piercing the man's head and turning the sea around him an unnatural shade of red. He was dead in an instant. Though the recording kept going, and so did the gunshots.
What the fuck? Why?
The camera pans across the waves, now revealing two more men in the water, clinging to what appears to be the wreckage of their boat. A boat that somehow had been destroyed. And before long, one of them was struck too, leaving the other man hanging onto the debris as he silently watches his friend's body float lifelessly past him.
What?
He held on for nearly 4 minutes, not saying a word, not fighting back, just holding on, until finally he too was executed. Understandably, the ordeal proved too much for the cameraman to handle, as at this point he just couldn't control an outburst. But not in any sort of emotional way that one might expect, as instead, he couldn't hold back his laughter. Even as a fourth swimmer was found and also executed, the laughs and the cheers from the people on board just kept on coming.
What?
Hello. Hi.
There was no sign of remorse for the killings, only celebration.
That's that shit I be talking about. Like, imagine the shit that going around the world that we never ever see, gang. I really imagine that shit, bro. Like the crazy motherfuckers, the sick shit. Are pirates still like a thing in 2025? Like,
And at the end of the video, the crew even posed for photos. Some of them joining arms together
what is
while
their purpose? What is their goal?
others took selfies with those listless bodies floating in the background. Over the course of the clip, 63 shots had been fired at 4 men in the ocean, none of whom survived the encounter. The video would be kept on YouTube for only 3 days under the title "Fishing Vessel Fijian Crew Getting Shots Outside Fiji Waters," providing the first and really the only bit of context for the clip, as when people began to dig deeper to find out what exactly they had just watched, they found something unusual. They found nothing. There was no other information about the event. There was no news articles. There were no police reports. There was quite literally nothing. This video was seemingly the first ever mention of this incident on the internet. Now, this might make sense if it had happened in the days surrounding the upload, but when digging into the video's metadata, it was revealed that not only was this not true, but that the video had actually been filmed a whole 2 years prior, in 2012. meaning that for 2 full years, whatever this event was went unseen and unreported. Given its alleged Fijian ties, their government would be the first to investigate in a process that only took about a day, as they immediately determined that the fishermen seen in this footage were not actually Fijian, and nor were the shooters. In fact, the waters didn't even match theirs either. And so, with the video having no ties to their country, they immediately dropped the case. For any others trying to find more information, things were bleak, as they had no idea where the incident took place, who the victims were, who the shooters were, the identity of the ships, or even the motivation behind the killings. They tried to find out who these victims were by searching every single accessible missing persons database from all across the world. They then tried to find cases of missing ships or reports of shootings at sea, only to reach the same results. Despite seeing it with our own eyes, it was as if these killings never even happened. With intrigue building around the clip, a few larger news agencies would pick up the story, most of them admitting that they too couldn't find any.
We need a geoguesser demon on the case, gang. Look at the color of the water or some shit, gang. There's gotta be a geoguesser that could guess these.
Noteworthy information on anything involving the case. And with the facts nearly impossible to come by, they instead focused on the more human questions surrounding the ordeal. Why? What had motivated the men on this ship to open fire on these helpless people? And given the media climate at the time, a reason was quickly brought forward.
These are the pirates of Somalia, holding the world's shipping industry to ransom.
U.S. officials say they are working with other countries to deal with the lawlessness they say is the root cause of the piracy.
We have to ensure that those who commit acts of piracy are held accountable.
The high seas are often a lawless place, and of all the criminal groups that can be found at sea, by far the most notorious at this time were Somali pirates, with it quickly being assumed that the men seen in the water were just that. Pirates that had planned to overthrow the ship, yet were somehow stopped, leading to their slow-motion execution. This honestly explains a lot, like why the crime was never reported and why the crew seemed to be celebrating their killing, as after all, this would mean that they had just survived a pirate attack from a group that likely would have done much worse to them. Because of these reports, the discourse surrounding the footage quickly went from
Somali in the water, did he?
Shock to, in many instances, support, with one user writing, "Kill those fucking pirates. They would not hesitate to kill you if they had the chance. How does it feel, you fucking scums?" And while not everyone held such strong emotions, for most it was settled. This was a case of self-defense, albeit a heartless one. Though as the clip began to slip from the headlines, questions began to arise that for a select few weren't so easy to ignore. For starters, in the footage we see 4 large boats in the area, which would make one wonder why such a small pirate group would choose to attack a ship that had reinforcements literally right next to it. It almost seemed like a suicide mission. And on top of this, through the debris you can clearly see that the boat was wooden, with it later being identified as a dhow, a slow-moving fishing vessel almost exclusively used in Arab countries. Given its speed and fragile wooden structure, this would likely be the last choice for many pirates. So not only did this not make sense from an attack standpoint, but the country of origin of this boat seemingly didn't match either. And to make this even stranger, the boat clearly had a flag attached to it, and though it couldn't be definitively identified, flying the flag of a country is almost unheard of for Somali pirates. It's safe to say that the pirate theory wasn't as concrete as many had assumed, and this only becomes more evident the further we dig into the video, with one of the most glaring discrepancies being the demeanor of the crew.
Yeah, they wasn't like... They taking pictures and shit.
It's obvious that they weren't fearing for their lives at all during this attack. In fact, their words show just how much they were enjoying it, with some people even shouting for the camera to get a better angle and encouraging the gunmen to keep shooting. And perhaps even more importantly, at no point do we see any weapons or any form of retaliation from the men floating in the water. It didn't look or sound like a fight. It appears more as a straight-up attack. And most chillingly of all, one of the swimmers can faintly be heard yelling, "No Somali, no pirate." Despite these glaring gaps, years would pass following the video's upload, with little in the way of new reported information. However, there were a select few who made it their mission to uncover the truth behind the footage.
So they just be going out on sea just blicking niggas? That's fucked up, bro. They just people chilling on the water? Yo, the motherfuckers on the ship are the pirates, nigga. But like, don't pirates got a purpose? Ain't they gonna kill people for a reason? I look like they just killed niggas for no reason. Just take pictures and be happy and shit.
One sliver at a time,